Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue bringing you provocative true crime mysteries. I have watched empires choke on their own blood. I have seen kings weep for crowns that cost their souls. But there was one who looked upon me not with terror, but with recognition. He did not beg, he did not pray, he smiled. They called him Vlad the Impaler, a prince of order forged in chaos. A man who found divinity in cruelty and immortality in fear. You who listen, you who believe death ends a story, listen closer. For I will tell you how flesh became legend, and how a mortal man became the name you still whisper when the night feels too long. Dracula. He thought he invented a monster. He did not know he was remembering one. Born beneath an eclipse, Vlad came screaming into a world already drowning in war. His father, Vlad Dracula, bore the sigil of the Dragon Order, a knight sworn to defend Christendom against the Ottomans. But faith in those lands was a currency, and the devil paid better. The child's cradle rocked to the rhythm of distant screams. He was suckled on steel and thunder. Before he could walk, he knew the scent of blood. When the Turks came, they took him and his brother as hostages, a prince in chains raised among the enemy. He learned silence, submission, and patience. He watched his captors eat, laugh, sleep. He memorized their weaknesses, the way fear made their hands twitch, the way arrogance made them blind. And when the time came, he returned home, not as a son, but as vengeance given form. Wallachia was a corpse of a nation, betrayed by its nobles, devoured by its neighbors. But Vlad saw what others did not, a land that could be reborn through discipline and terror.
Mercy, he said, is a luxury of safe men. We are not safe. From that night, mercy ceased to be law. Order was carved into the flesh of chaos.
At dawn, travelers crossing the plains found what looked like a forest sprouted overnight. Thousands of stakes reaching toward heaven, each bearing the weight of those who defied him. No birds sang, even the wind refused to pass through.
The man who can do this fears nothing.
He was right. Vlad feared only forgetfulness. He invited his enemies to dine, traitorous boyars who had betrayed his father. They arrived in silk and perfume. They left in silence, hanging upon sharpened wood, their laughter still ringing between their teeth. The feast never ended. Even in decay, it watched over the city, a reminder that treachery was a banquet with one course. And you ask why mortals feared him. They mistook devotion for damnation. He simply understood what all rulers learned too late. Fear lasts longer than love. He built fountains that ran red and bridges that no army dared cross. A golden chalice sat in the marketplace, unguarded, untouched. No thief lived long enough to covet it. When foreign envoys refused to bow, he fixed their turbans to their skulls with iron nails. When famine struck, he invited the poor to a grand feast and locked the doors behind them. By dawn, there were no beggars in Wallachia. You call it cruelty. He called it perfection. Every kingdom is built upon a graveyard. He simply kept count. The Sultan marched upon him with an army of 50,000. Vlad had 10, but fear is a weapon sharper than any sword. He dressed his soldiers in the armor of the dead, let them march by night and vanish by dawn. When the Ottomans entered his lands, they found villages empty, churches desecrated, and whispers in every corridor. The invaders slept uneasily, and when they woke, their comrades were gone. The next night they found them, impaled in a ring around the camp, their faces turned toward the living. No trumpet sounded, no order was given. The army fled before morning. But even iron cracks, and even fear can betray its maker. Vlad's reign brought peace, a peace that smelled of smoke and sanctity. Yet among his own, whispers grew. His cruelty was no longer seen as justice, but as hunger. His brother Radu, raised by the Turks, returned at the head of an army. The dragon's sons faced one another in the ruins of their father's dream. Radu's men stormed the castle. Vlad's loyalists died to the last. He was captured, imprisoned, paraded like a beast. But legends do not rot in chains. They ferment. While he languished, the peasants spoke of miracles, how the prince's shadow moved, though his body did not, how wolves gathered beneath his window and howled his name. Some swore that when he stared through the bars, men felt their hearts stop, as though his gaze had drunk their courage dry. And when he escaped, they said he rode through forests where no light followed, that the soil blackened beneath his horse's hooves, that the earth itself refused to take him. The living could not decide if he was blessed or cursed, so they gave him both. They gave him eternity. Betrayed by his own men, Vlad fell in battle against the same empire that once feared him. His head was taken to Constantinople, displayed on a pike before the Sultan's court. His body was buried, or perhaps hidden, in an unmarked monastery tomb. The monks said that for 3 nights the soil would not settle. By dawn, it was still. But the grave was empty.
You will make me live again.
In the dim light of his London study, Bram Stoker sat alone, haunted by whispers of an ancient prince who drank blood to conquer death itself. He'd read of Vlad Tepes, the Impaler of Wallachia, a ruler so ruthless his enemies feared him even in death. But Stoker saw more than a monster. He saw a man cursed by immortality, by hunger, by legend. Drawing from centuries-old Eastern European folklore, Stoker stitched together truth and terror, real history, and whispered superstition. Vlad became Dracula, and through Stoker's pen, a new kind of evil was born, one that wore a noble face and slept in a coffin by day.
Dracula, the name that would outlive all others.
4 centuries have passed since he ruled, and still the world speaks his name. Not because he was cruel, but because cruelty is the truest mirror of man. You fear the undead, but it is not the grave you should dread. It is the memory that refuses to die. And I am that memory. When the night is quiet, and the blood in your veins begins to hum like a prayer you've forgotten, listen. For the dragon's sun still stirs in your stories, still rules your fears, still drinks from the cup of eternity. When Dracula was published in 1897, few could imagine it would outlive its author. Yet over a century later, the Count still walks among us, not as a man, but as an idea. A fusion of myth, fear, and the brutal legacy of a real prince who impaled thousands to keep his power.